Good morning, everybody. We are live and welcome to another live here with me, Ed Cooper. It's Wednesday, the 23rd of February. Can you believe we're nearly at the end of March? I can't believe how quickly February goes. It always catches me. I've only been doing this 43 years and it still gets me how quick February goes. I hope you are well. I hope you have got over the windy weather that we've been having over this last couple of days and week. I hope it hasn't affected you too much. And I hope it's sort of blown some of the stuff out of your mind that just gets you focused and energetic and positive about what's ahead. It's a beautiful sunny day here, and I'm going to share some amazing stuff with you today. Some of you may have already heard of the DISC profiles and personality profiles that that has been around for many years. Some of you may never have heard of it. Some of you may have done things like MBTI or colours or talent dynamics. There's lots and lots of different programs out there that you can look to assess you as an individual. And I wanted to dive into this today. I really wanted to share with you A, an understanding of what DISC is about, and B, how you can use a program like DISC or a platform like DISC to be able to understand yourself better, most importantly, and understand others better. And that can be your team, it can be the people who you manage, it could be your family, it could be your customers. But really important that we understand ourselves and others better, because we can communicate more, effectively, we can support better, we can care better, and we can get better results. And for you in business, that's what it's about. It's about getting better results out with the resources that you have. So welcome, everybody. If you are here, please say hello in the comments, give us a wave. I can see some people there on Facebook. I can't quite see anyone on LinkedIn, but that's just because StreamYard doesn't give you that information, but I'm sure you're there. So good morning. Okay, so as I said to you, the reason why I wanted to get you to understand a little bit more about personality, a little bit more about what goes on for people, so that you can be better at communicating and getting better results from individuals as well. As I put in the post about this, we are all amazing individual human beings, and we're all different. And that's a great thing. Thing is, we are all, thankfully, predictably different. That is, given a situation, we can predict the likely approach by individuals quite readily, just by this DISC profile that I'm going to share with you today. So DISC is, as I said, it's been around since we sort of started back around 1928. William Moulton Marsden was the person, the Harvard psychologist that kind of got behind this and built it. And from then, if you go out and you Google this, you can get lots of information. You can go onto YouTube and see lots of information, watch lots of videos on this subject itself. But I'm more interested in sharing with you what it is and getting you to think about what that means for you and your team, and your sales and your customers and your performance. So let me give you an overview first. So the way that DISC works is that it splits into a quadrant. So effectively, you imagine this quadrant like this, and there are four areas: the D, the I, the S, and the C. And that's what the DISC profile name comes from. The very first one is dominance. So these individuals who are dominant, as the title suggests, are people who come in with great gusto. They're forthright. They're very focused on targets and tasks. They're the ones who want to go out and win. They're incredibly competitive, and they're great to have on your team, because they're the driving force, the energy behind a lot of the action that goes forward. They want whatever they're going for, they want that yesterday. If they could have that yesterday, they'd be very happy. So think about the environment in which the dominance in you comes out, right? Because as I go through DISC, you're going to be a bit of all of these potentially. But you will find that there's a strength or a preference in certain areas. There might be one or two that you are more like than the others. So yeah, so this is you go-getter individual that really wants to win and is very competitive. However, the weakness of someone who's dominant is that they can be overbearing. Sometimes they can tend to step on other people's toes. They can maybe miss individuals' feelings, and those people who have those feelings might feel a little bit trodden on and might sort of say, they just don't care about me. All they care about is the results that they get. So this individual is going to be very task focused and fast paced as well within it. Around about 17% of the people in our population are in the dominant sector. And a lot of the time, high Ds will be running businesses as well. Not all the time, but a lot of the time they will, because they'll be the go-getters that's going on there. Now, if you can spot high Ds, excuse me, just grabbing a drink. You can spot high Ds in the high street. So I've just been walking from the car up here, and I was crossing the road. And before I crossed the road, at the road crossing, the little boxes with the wait button. Yeah. So this person was in front of me. They pressed the wait button and they sort of stepped back, and 3 seconds later they pressed the wait button again, and then sort of 4 seconds later they pressed it again and again and again and again, and then maybe 4 or 5 seconds later they just sort of pressed it and held it, like as if they're going to take control of the red lights and overturn it so that the green man comes on. There was traffic going, so they couldn't have walked. I'm sure that if there was no traffic, they'd have just gone anyway. So isn't it interesting that you can see that dominance coming out of individuals just by looking around you and seeing those people who are just perhaps a little bit impatient? Maybe they are the dominant ones that are out there. So who's in your team that's like that? What impact are they having on the rest of the team? Are you that person, and what impact are you having, positive or negative, on your team? So that's dominant. The next one is influential. Right? So these individuals are they're talkers. They'll talk to anyone. Like they will be the people that when you get in a lift, that they're likely to have a conversation with you, even though they've never met you before in your life. So they would be the person that, if that dominant person that was crossing the road that I mentioned to you today, if they were an influencer, they'd have pressed the button, they'd have probably waited, they might have pressed it again, but they would have been talking to me going, oh, wish these lights would change. I've got to get somewhere. So they would have had a conversation as well with me. They draw energy from other people. They tend to be more extroverted in their tendencies, and like the name says, they influence people. They draw attention to and attract individuals to them. They're warm, they're trusting, they're very optimistic individuals, and they're very friendly as well. I have a lot of I in me, in my profile. It's not my most dominant, but it's definitely there. And one of the things with eyes is that their weaknesses are that they perhaps are not great listeners to other individuals. They're quite challenging for them to keep promises, because they want to please everybody all the time, that they say yes a lot. And when they say yes, they let people down because they can't do everything. It's impossible, isn't it? So yes, they can overpromise. I was going to give you some names actually of people that might be kind of D's or I's, and as we went through this. So a good D, someone that you'll all know, Donald Trump, massive high D. He's someone that would fit into that. High I, that are well known. Someone like Will Smith, he's a high I. And who else could I think of? Anyone who's like on TV, who's like really kind of out there and full of energy. They're the type of people that you will see that are likely to be high I's. Right, so that's dominant and influential. And again, just think about who is it in my team that are high I's. Now, if you've got a sales force, a high I and a high D is probably a good mix, if you like, to have, to be able to get out there, go and be friendly with people, go and talk to people, but go-getters. but you want them to have a balance as well of not treading on people. Some people that are not high D, maybe not high I, as I go through this, you'll notice it. They struggle with sales because of their particular preference. So do think about, have I got the right balance? Have I got the right people in maybe my sales team or maybe my customer service team? Those high eyes are great customer service people as well, because they want to please people. Thinking about in restaurants, they want to please the customer and get it right for them, and they want to be quick as well. So these individuals, the influencers, they tend to be more people focused, whereas the Ds are more task focused. These are more people focused, but they're also quite high paced as well as influential individuals. So that's the I. So next one, S, steady. These are the steadies. The steady eddies, as they say. The steadies are, think of like the tortoise and the hare, right? You've heard of that story, right? You know the outcome of the tortoise and the hare, right? The hare wins because, the tortoise wins. Got that wrong. The tortoise wins because it's steady as they go. It's one step after the other. Keep going, and eventually the goals will be achieved. And with a steady person, they want to make people happy. They will likely put other people first before themselves as well. Harmony and steadiness is incredibly important for them in their world. They're very supportive and sincere. They're very collaborative. They'll want to work with other people as well, and they'll be consistent and caring as well. So you probably know those people that are out there that are like that, and they probably are in care jobs. Or working with individuals where they might look after in care. They might be counsellors. They could even be coaches. They could be in the NHS as nurses or doctors. Those people who are caring and supportive and steady and focused and making sure that the right things are done in the right way. Generally speaking, the steadies will also have a small circle of friends that they'll wrap around. They won't have a lot like influencers, right? They want everyone. Like all of them are my friends. You say to an influencer, "How many friends have you got?" They'll get their phone out and they'll look and they're like 3,250. So they'll have everyone as their friend. Steadies will have one or two, maybe three close friends that they will have in their circle, and very rarely let anybody else in. They'll be cautious of letting anybody else in. So the areas, the blind spots, if you like, the weaknesses, if you prefer, that the steadies probably need to be considerate of are being able to speak up and speak out. A lot of the time they don't want to offend, they don't want to make a noise. So sometimes they will shy away from speaking up. And also they're not big, keen individuals on change. So when change occurs, that rocks their world because they haven't got status quo going on. They haven't got steadiness. They've got this wave going on of change. Whereas alternatively, or the opposite side of that would be your dominants who want change, like they drive change. So you can see that there'll be a conflict between the dominants and the steadies, between wanting change and driving change and not wanting change and wanting the status quo. So some of the people that you might know that fit into this, David Beckham is a well-known S. He's very steady, methodical, and supportive and caring individual. And if you think about your team and where they sit, have you got the right people in the right seat of your team? And if they're steady and you're dominant, let's say you're a dominant leader and you've got someone who's steady, they'll probably frustrate you because they don't speak up, or because they don't like change, or because they're so caring that you don't feel like they're getting on and doing what they should be doing. well, your job as a leader is to understand that and say, well, how can I help them? How can I support them? What can I do about my behavior to change and support them and what they need in their role? I used to work in HR in corporate, and there would be a lot of S style people study in HR. There'd be a lot of high D in the operation. And you would get this conflict going on. You fluffy HR was a phrase that some of you have probably heard before, and it's not about that. It's actually about doing the right thing for people at the right time in the right way, rather than bulldozing and making a quick decision that might be wrong. It had to be thought through, had to be caring, had to be methodical. So that's the S's as well. Now, as a coach, I've got a high level of S because I care about my clients. I care about the outcomes for them, and I will take time to push forward and make decisions with them. But I have a lot of high D clients as well, so I balance that really nicely with thought-provoking questions and consciousness to be able to make the right decision, or for them to be able to make the right decision for them. So they can complement each other. I've coached some business owners where one of the partners, the husband and wife, one of the partners is very high D, one of the partners is very high S. I've coached a couple of companies where that occurs, and they complement each other really, really well. But they are very aware of the strengths and the weaknesses of each other. And that's the important part. So that's steady. Ask any questions as we go through. If there's anything you need to sort of take away from this, please do grab your pens and pencils, just make some notes, just go, wow, do you know what? Maybe that person, my partner, my friend, maybe I'm seeing a little bit about them that I've not seen before. Maybe we are a little bit different, but predictably different, and maybe I could do something a little bit different as well. So we go on to the last one, which is compliance. So the high C's. So compliance is it's all about being careful, being detailed, being methodical, being logical, being data driven as the compliance. So following that data or objectivity towards an outcome, towards maybe an action that needs to be taken that's driven by that certainty, not a gut feel. They're not gut feel people. And jobs that the individuals that are in high C's, maybe accountants and solicitors, maybe even, high level consultants and doctors that might be very, very high C, very, very methodical and specific in what's right and what's wrong. And they're quite difficult, high C's in particular, quite difficult to waver from that. So they will absolutely be right in what they say, and they will struggle to listen to anything else because they believe that the data that they have is absolutely bang on. They are incredibly loyal, though. That's the other thing. They're incredibly loyal. And a lot of high C's are very, so some of the wealthiest people in the world are high C's. So a good example would be Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs. High C's that go into the devil in the detail and absolutely they understand everything down to its infinite point. And as a result of that, win and be successful. So high C's that are out there, the areas that they can, their blind spots, if you like, are for them. It can be hard for them to get to the point of a particular something that they're talking about, something that they're delivering, because there's so many things to think about, so many data points, so many variables, so many probabilities, that they'll find it difficult to tell you what you actually need to know. And they can maybe come across a little bit cold because they're interested in facts and data and logic. Then the human side can be missed on occasions. So who's a high C in your life, in your world? Who do you know? Who's in your business that's high C? Are they in the right role? If they're in, admin, accounts, bookkeeping and things, they may well be in the right role. It works really well when you've got a good high C individual as a financial director that also has a level of influence in them, so high I in them as well. That CI, whilst is on the opposite ends of the spectrum, when together can be really good because they can engage individuals and be logical and methodical at the same time. So it's a great trait to have. They work really well as well with the high Ds because they are task focused and they want to move forward. However, they will be working at a slower pace. So they will be the sensor check. So you'll hear things from a high D leader to a high C financial director, such as, okay, we've got this idea, we want to go, we want to deliver it in the next month. Mrs. High C financial director, can we do it? Can you tell me that the data says yes? And then they'll come back and have that conversation. So they can work really, really well together as a high C. They will be, so I mentioned earlier on about crossing the road, right? And that actually happened, that high D was definitely there. And high C would press the button, know that the button's been pressed because it says wait and it's lit up, and then they'd wait because that's the rules. That's what they do. And then as soon as the green man came on, they would look left and right to make sure everything's clear and then walk across the road. They wouldn't run. They'd walk across the road because they're the rules. That's what we do. Stick to those things. They're logical, methodical, and objective. So they're the high Cs. So who do you know in your team that's a high C? And if you're the opposite of that, like if you're a high influencer, fast-paced, extrovert, friendly, and you're talking to a high C, logical, may come across a little bit cold, task focused, definitely not people focused. You might think, oh, yeah, really difficult to talk to. They're just not friendly. But it's not that. It's not that they're not friendly. It's just that they're different, but predictably different. So what can you do to change your approach to those individuals? How can you communicate to them in the right way? And that's where this all kind of bundles up together. So I've done DISC. Hope you got something from that. So take those notes away. But look, we are a blend of all of these styles. Okay. So some of you will have really high on one and maybe low on the other three. Some of you might be high on two and sort of medium or low on two as well. It's less likely that you're high on three, but it can happen, that you can be sort of medium to high on three and one's low. It's very unusual, but again, it can happen that you have a balance across the piece. That's a really nice thing to do, to have that balance across all of the traits. And your styles can change dependent on your environment. So I remember doing DISC years and years ago, and I was massive high I, and I had very little D and a little bit of R, a little bit of S and C. But my leader, my manager, was very high D. And after about probably 6 to 12 months, I remember taking the test again, and my D had shifted up because the environment that I was in caused me to be more D. I had to be more D to support the leader that I was working with. So your environment can change and flex that, but there is a core you. There's a there's the kind of natural version of you, and there's the adapted version of you. And the adaptation comes through your environment that you're in, the job that you're in, or the conditions in which you are working. The thing to think about is that is to accept who you are. Like who you are is who you are. So just accept who you are and work with that. And you heard that phrase of treat people like you would like to be treated. I remember that as a kid, getting told that. Treat people how you like to be treated. But with DISC, they've called that the golden rule, right? With DISC, there's a platinum rule. The platinum rule is treat people the way that they would like to be treated. So if you look at someone and you can start to see some of the traits that fit into these areas, then you can start to shift your style to be able to communicate more effectively to them, deliver how they want to be delivered to, feedback, or maybe even acknowledge individuals in the way that they want to be acknowledged. So what do I mean by that? So if you think about a high I, they probably don't mind being surrounded by their team and applauded for some great work that they've done and embraced, in if you like, in the office. High C don't want that. They don't want that at all. So if you're a high I leader and you go, I've got a great idea, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the financial director and all stand around and clap for a fantastic job that they did. They don't want that. It's very unlikely that they want that if they're a high C. So do think about who and how you are communicating to those individuals. And remember that the quadrant that I mentioned to you before, okay, so at the top, you're going to have D and C. Okay, so D and C at the top, that is task focused. The D's are going to be more fast paced, the C's are going to be slower paced. At the lower bottom, the bottom part of the quadrant, you're going to have I and S. And I and S are more people focused. But the I's are going to be slightly faster paced and the S's are going to be slightly slower paced. So as you can see, your C's and S's are slightly slower paced and your D's and I's are slightly faster paced. So they do overlap as you run through. But think about let's take your sales team. Let's take recruitment, for example. There needs to be a holistic approach to recruiting the right individual into your organization. I would never, ever say use DISC or any other profile as a basis to make a decision on a recruitment, but it could be a small percentage of your decision-making process, and like 10% of a piece of information that might say, well, this person probably fits into our team because of their profile. They probably fit into the role because of their profile. However, that's a small chunk in comparison to, their CV, their experience, the individual that turns up on time, what they deliver through the tasks that you give on the recruitment process, the interview that they deliver on. So, a bunch of other stuff that comes in, but they can be really, really powerful in making and helping you make those decisions. So do think about that. Think about it from a customer perspective as well. If you're customer facing, let's say you're a B2C business, and you've got, let's say you're in retail and you've got customers coming in, the types of people coming in will all be different, but predictably different. So if you're a high I customer service person, and I'm going to be really sweeping here, right? Go to America and go and get served by someone in America, right? Most of them come across as really high I. Certainly if you watch the movies and we're to believe that, right? So it's like, hey, how you doing? Well, let me show you around the store. What can I do for you today? And we as Brits are kind of a bit like, oh, I don't really want that. But some Brits will, because some Brits are high I and they'll love that. They'll love that interaction. But what they don't get right is to recognize individuals and what they might need. So evoke a conversation with the people coming in, and given what you get back will give you some instance of or some information that might mean that they are a particular trait. So for example, if you go to someone and say, hey, how you doing today? And they say, I'm really great, thanks. I've had an awesome day this morning. We've got up, we've dropped the kids off to school and come in here shopping. I can't wait to spend my money. Well, they're giving you lots of information. They're bright. It's likely that they're a high I. If they turn around and say, you say, good morning, and they say, morning, that's it, and that's all you get, they're likely to be a high D. You might need some more information to verify that, but they might be a high D, and therefore you go, if you need anything, I'm here, just let me know. Be brief, be bright, be gone. And let's say they're a high C, and you say good morning to them, and they say, yeah, morning, listen, I'm after the jumpers, but I want a very specific type of jumper. I want the mohair jumper in blue, and I don't want dots on it. Right, so they'll be giving you exactly what they want. They've already thought about it. They're high C, and they're going to want that. They don't want they want a white one or a blue one. They don't want a pink one or a brown one. They want what they've asked for. And in a high C, they might be a little bit quieter. They might be come across as a little bit shyer. It might be the first time that they're in the store, so they don't feel very comfortable. And again, you can help them by caring and supporting those individuals, not by being that kind of high I individual that you might be as a salesperson. So you can flex your style around this. If you're interested in doing a disc profile, I can provide you with a full disc profile. They don't cost a lot of money. They're really interesting to look at. We do team events for DISC as well, so we can work with leaders and their team just to understand what the balance is going on in their team, and maybe where their blind spots are and where their strengths are that they can really leverage. Those team events are fantastic for opening the eyes of everybody in the room. Every time I run those, the team gets so much from them. And you can do that on like a half day or even a full day, make a big thing of it. Maybe you can stick some planning onto it as well. So you can have team build and planning along the way. But you can also go online, just have a little look, dive into it a little bit more. But for these purposes, understand other individuals will help you get more sales, communicate better, build a better team, get better performance out of your team, keep more customers for longer, attract more customers to you. So they're really, really, really important to understand. From my point of view, I hope you've got some good information from this today. If you need any more, let me know. Just drop me an email, edcooper@actioncoach.co.uk. I can work with you and your team to understand your profiles a little bit better. That's it from me. I will see you next Wednesday. We're going to be in March next week, and we're going to march forward into a new topic. This time we've been talking about leadership and team, and next month we're going to be shifting into marketing. So exciting times to be talking about marketing next month. March is marketing month. Take care, everyone. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.